Whether your beer is in a bottle, can, or glass, kick back and relax. It's Better on Draft.
Hello, everyone. We are live with episode 292 of the Better on Draft podcast. My name is Robear. I am going to be your co-host for this evening. We're doing a special episode this week in remembrance, or rather in celebration, of Jubilee Day, otherwise known as Juneteenth. We are having our second rendition of the Better on Drafts Drinking While Black episode. So again, I'm going to be your co-host. I have my fellow co-host to the side of me here, at least on my screen. It might be a little different on the live screen, but I have my co-host, the producer and director of many documentaries. I will just go with the beer ones that we know of, that being The Brew Church, A Fresh Perspective, and One Pint at a Time, Mr. Aaron Jose. How are you again?
Again, I am doing very well. Thanks for having me tonight. And tonight, I am actually not drinking a beer. I'm taking a break. We've been touring with One Pint at a Time for the past 7 months, quite a bit. Things have been going well, and I've been drinking a lot of beer. But tonight, I have the Imperial Diet Coke Stout. 0 calories, highly carbonated, very shitty mouthfeel because it's warm, and you need to drink these cold. They're, not very complex at all. But I wanted to welcome everyone. I'm very happy to see you. Zoom, some of you I've seen recently face-to-face, but it really warms my heart to be talking about, drinking while black. In my case, drinking while brown.
Yeah, and it is glad to have you here. All right, I am now going to go ahead and go around to our panel that is joining us for this episode. Once again, I'm going to start with Angie. If you can introduce yourself, tell us who you are, what you do in craft beer, and what you're drinking.
Okay, hi, I am Angie Thomas. I am the Undeniable Vixen. I am a brand ambassador. I've been doing that for the last 8 years. I also am championing a team of wonderful women through Pink Boots, North Texas, and I give leadership to that. Every Monday, we do a call called Being Black in Craft, where we do not deny our place in craft beer. And we do that on Clubhouse every Monday at 7:00. And also I have my own personal page, Undeniable Vixen, where I am seeking and wanting to find the best beer. And if it means I have to get a ticket, I will fly to it. So what I'm having right now in my dope Hannah glass that I got a couple of years ago, the Black is Beautiful glass, I'm drinking the Delview from New York City. Delview Biscuits and Beer, and this is their rendition of For Women's, their series. And this is Peaches. If you're familiar with the Nina Simone song, you know what this means.
Peaches. Well done. All right. And next, I'm going to pass this over to Aubrey.
Hey, what's up, everybody? I'm Aubrey Perry. I'm the founder of Crackem. Crackem is a mobile brewery marketing platform that caters to beer tourists. We're a startup, and in Florida right now, we're doing some things at the Barrel and Flow Fest in Pittsburgh this year. But what it allows you to do is find breweries near you and incentives to visit. I am drinking a Oyster City, which is a brewery out of Apalachicola and Tallahassee, Florida. A blonde ale, and I'm drinking it out of my Fresh Fest 19 glass.
Nice. I unfortunately was not able to attend that. I wish I did. I had a chance to go there or go to any of them this year. But next, I'm going to go over to Old Beer Juan Kenobi, Mr. Bronski.
Hey, what's going on, everyone? This is Bronski Brian, aka Old Beer Juan Kenobi. One half of the Beers Fundamental Show. Again, we do a podcast, my wife and I. We try to travel around the country like Undeniable Vixen. If we hear about it, we try to go get that beer. And so we can bring it back to the great state of Florida and try it out and share it. Right now, I'm drinking a home brew that was done by myself And my homemade Lou Pete Molina is called the Fundamental Peaches. It's a peach saison. Very good, very refreshing. I admit it's hot as hell in Florida, so we can't do those stouts until around November at the earliest.
If that.
We'll catch on fire down here. So it's going to be mostly light and refreshing for sure. Plus, you really can't take a stout to the beach. If you spill it, people get mad at you because it turns all black and brown, mess up the sand, and they start bitching. So, look, regardless of the laws, I'm trying not to be political, but I'm taking my beer to the beach.
Damn right. I hear that. All right. Next is Ashley.
Oh, wow. You just threw me for a loop, Robear one, because in Jamaica, we drink stouts year round and it's very hot and humid and drinking room temperature. So note to myself, whatever part of Florida you're in, that's the beach I don't need to go to. I need to show up with my dragon stout and bustle wine. If a little spill, no problem. My name is Ashley. I'm trying to tell you what I do succinctly. What I don't do is sleep. So let's start there. I have my hands in quite a few things. I am a brand ambassador for Duvel and Almond Gang here in Las Vegas. I am a proud executive board member for Pink Boots International. So shout out to my fellow Pink Booters. I am co-founder of Mo Better Brews, which is a predominantly African-American and Latin American drinking club here in Las Vegas that we focus on the synergy of hip hop, African-American culture, and beer. So Sunday on Juneteenth, we will be doing a beer release in honor of the original Tropican Can Girls from the Moulin Rouge. The Moulin Rouge was the first integrated hotel in all of America, and it was open right here in Las Vegas. So when Nat King Cole and Sammy Davis were performing on the Strip, they could perform there. They couldn't eat there. They couldn't sleep there. They couldn't even change their clothes there. So very, very proud to release that beer on Sunday. And I am one of the co-founders of Lifting Lucy, which is a 501c3 nonprofit that our mission-driven work is to support women of color. So if you're Black, Indigenous, any type of melanin, we're here to support you. And we were able to support 8 women to attend CBC this year. So we're very proud of that. And we just came back from Asheville, where we proudly hosted a screening of One Pint at a Time. And we did a collab, which I'm not drinking yet, but our equity over everything. I don't know if it's showing, but this is a really special beer for us. It was a blonde stout. So Robear one, get you some blonde stouts. They're not quite as dark. And we incorporated coffee from the only African-American owned coffee brand in North Carolina, which is Grind. And they had a Black Entrepreneurial Festival, so we were there for that. And then last but not least, I do have a brewery in planning that's slated to open in Montego Bay, Jamaica. And we will be showcasing stouts heavily. And we'll get into that a little bit later, but I'll just tease saying stout is very much a male beverage in the Caribbean. So I really get a kick of being out in public drinking my stout. Warm at that. Causes lots of controversy.
And I am a fan of, if I don't care whether it's summer or winter, give
no
me a stout.
Season.
There's no, as much as breweries love to brew toward seasons, a stout is every season for me. So I agree.
See, I'm right there with you, Robear. And to that point, I am drinking one of my favorite varietals of Black is Beautiful from a local brewery here in Las Vegas by Bad Beat. And this is coming in just under 10.5%.
Perfect.
A little light beer.
It's light. And finally, last but not least, I'd like to have Matt introduce himself.
Hey, good evening. How's it going, everybody? It's good to be a part of the panel. My name is Matt Wilson. I work in radio. I work for iHeartMedia. I've been a producer in radio for a little bit of time. I also do on-air stuff as well. Also host 2 podcasts. One is called Grill This. It's a craft beer and grilling podcast where we pair grilling and craft beer. I do that with my partner, Jim Salmon. That doesn't really dive into the culture. That's just strictly beer and cooking. The other podcast I do is called Inside the Margins, and now that one's more geared towards African Americans and other marginalized groups and some of the struggles that they face. And I also have while I've been doing that podcast, kind of came across the whole concept of there's not a lot of African American involvement in craft beer. I've been drinking craft beer for a very long time, introduced to me by a European friend of mine from England, back probably in 1999 or something like that. But I just, every time I go to a festival, except for the ones like we were talking about, like the Fresh Fest and Barrel and Flow, besides those, the majority of the festivals that I've gone to, I've not seen a lot of people of color. So that's why I decided to pursue more of why are we lacking in craft beer and that whole industry and dynamic there. So I'm happy to be in a room full of people of melatonin or color who enjoy beer and other craft beverages. So thank you very much for being a part of this and let me join. And what am I drinking today? I figured I would represent my area. I'm from Rochester, New York. We have a brewery called Genesee Brewery here in Rochester, one of the oldest breweries in New York State, 153 years old, I believe it is. So I am drinking a Kolsch. It's a pineapple Kolsch from Genesee Brewery. I'm also drinking out of my Black is Beautiful glass as well, enjoying that. And I agree with you guys. I don't think beer is seasonal. I will drink a sour in the winter and a stout in the summer. I don't care. If I like the way it tastes, I will drink it. And that's how I roll.
Indeed. All right. As for myself, I am drinking. The first I just popped the can. I haven't taken a sip of it yet. But this one is both of mine are local. But this one comes from Eastern Market Brewing Company, as they are having their Juneteenth celebration, which is happening right now at the brewery. But they have released this particular beer called Jubilee Gold, which is a peach golden ale. And then I also have, because stout season is every season, I have from Five Shores in collaboration with Black Calder and the Siren of Stouts, Barb Baker, the beer called Ancestors' Wildest Dreams. So that is my stout and my peach ale for the evening. So thank you, everyone, for coming on to the episode. I guess we will go ahead and kind of get right into it. And as Matt, Angie, and Bronski, you've all brought up about traveling and going to Beer Fest. I guess let's first just kind of talk about those experiences of going to those Beer Fest where, obviously in the last 2+ years, we now have we have Barrel and Flow, formerly Fresh Fest, and now going to have Blacktoberfest. But prior to that, we've been going to these beer festivals and traveling. And I guess just kind of talk to us about the experiences of going to these breweries and just kind of the feeling that you get when you go to these new places, and whether or not there's any situations of where you felt unwelcome. So I'm gonna start. I think I'll start with Angie on this one, because I believe she posts so much in the beer groups that she definitely does a lot of traveling, or not a lot of traveling, but definitely gets a lot of beer. So I'm starting with Angie on this one.
Wait. Hold on. Not a little bit here and there. So I would say probably initially I got some pushback when I would go to breweries or to festivals or things like that, because I have 2 strikes. I'm Black and I'm a woman. Mm-hmm. So you're going to automatically get mansplained about what I want to drink. You don't ask me, you just assume that I want a sour, where I have friends that love IPAs. I have people that, I want to know what kind of beer you make. So I'm going to get clean beers. I want something like a Hef or a Wit. I want you to start, around that realm, or a lager before I dive into anything else. But when you talk about what you like or what you enjoy, and it seems that camaraderie of, yes, I know what the fuck I'm talking about. And I probably can sell this better than you selling it to me. It becomes, okay, maybe I won't treat the next person this way. And when I go to festivals, because we're so few and far between, we pull up. So it may be 5 of us that are going, and we may be that one dot in that bowl of vanilla, but we're that 5 that know exactly what we want. And so we spread out. It's not necessarily, a novelty or anything. And I think some people think that's what we're doing. Like it's some kind of, it's like a novelty, like, oh no, you don't really believe this. It's not something that you do. And that's not necessarily the case when you go out to breweries or when you can go out to festivals. But as time has progressed, I feel a little bit of movement. I'm not going to say all the way, but I'm going to say a little bit of movement where the expectation is I'm not getting the initial, oh, well, you must be in the wrong place. No, I'm, getting those welcoming vibes. And if I don't feel that, I don't come back. And if I don't come back, I tell my friends, and they tell their friends. And then when February comes and you want to do this, that, and the other because you want to culturally appropriate, then we can go ahead and say, yeah, no, this is not genuine. So.
Yeah, that is fair. And I've seen quite a few that have kind of done that here as well. Bronski, your thoughts?
Well, from the standpoint of like feeling uncomfortable, it's hard to make me feel uncomfortable. I mean, it's because my wife and I, we grew up in the segregated South in Alabama. I'm only 50, and people laugh when I say I'm only 51, and I say segregated South because they think, things changed in 55 or 68, something like that. I said, no, I remember not even being able to go to school with white kids or being able to, I was the first, literally, as a kid, the first Black person to get a membership at the white YMCA. You had the Black YMCA, the white YMCA. And so I grew up with, it was planned by my mom unknowingly. She threw me in a lot of things. So you can't make me uncomfortable because I grew up being uncomfortable, if that makes sense. I remember my wife and I going to the Great American Beer Fest for the first time about 8 years ago. And I can pretty much tell you the Black people that were there. It was myself, her, Annie Johnson, SD and XL Dorsey, and this Black guy who was wearing a Lendenhausen, and another gentleman who worked in the industry. And that was it. And you're talking about, and we went all 4 days. And you're talking about an average of 60,000 people. And those were the only Black faces I saw. It's gradually growing. And I think things like the Barrel and Flow Festival, which was a blast last year, looking forward to it this year, is really starting to get people into it and sort of making it where we have a place of our own that we can say, okay, hi, I can go, and even if I don't know Ashley or or Angie, if I don't know them, I can at least go to them and say, hey, how you doing? And feel out of place, so I think is going. And again, I can't say that even if you tried to make me uncomfortable, I didn't notice it because that's just me. But I do know that there are times where I'm probably going to get that look of, do you know the difference between a coach and an old English? And so, but you know, it's for me, I go in at any place representing us. You know, no matter what I do. And then, you know, my normal job, I'm an assistant principal at a high school. And anything I do, I go in representing. When I go into that school every day, I go in representing us. And I have no problem with letting you know that I'm representing us. And so that's the same thing, you know, my wife and I do with craft beer, you know. And to be honest, wines also, because, you know, we go places to different beers and different wineries. And if you really want to see weird looks, you get them there, because then they definitely think that you don't know the difference between a Pinot and Wild Irish Rose. But that's just my experience.
Yeah. Well, and actually I want to jump to Ashley to kind of go in on it here, because Angie brought in about, you know, there's a double whammy that not only do you got the melanin popping, but you're a woman as well. So being in the industry, or trying to be in the industry as a Black woman, I mean, that feels like it gives a hell of a lot more of a roadblock than men, period.
Yeah. Wow. There's a lot I want to say. I'm trying to organize my thoughts here. So very much like Bronski, you know, I've had a very interesting life experience where I've been the only one of, you know, 9 times out of 10. The college campus that I went to, it was about an hour outside of downtown Sydney, Australia. There were only 3 Black people on campus. And so I got all the bizarre questions, love them to death. We're great friends now. But there was a guy that literally was just fascinated with my hair, and like clockwork, he would know, it's Sunday, Ashley's washing and deep conditioning her hair. And I was like, oh gosh. And then it just got to a point, I was like, wait a minute, you're a chiropractor? Okay, I'll make you a deal. You can touch my hair if you adjust my back. And I just think for me, I make those awkward situations work for me. But more pointedly to your question, you know, when I'm out doing accounts or trainings or things like that, you know, I have, and it's usually like those home brewers that think they know everything about beer that come up and say really dumb shit to me, like, have you had this beer before? Or they want to argue with me how to pronounce Duvel. Duvel is not French. It's not Duvel. If you want to call it Duvel, you can, but it's not French. It's Duvel. And so a lot of times I'll just kind of smile and say, oh, okay, because being a Black woman in this country, anyhow, you know, unfortunately, I have been socialized and through lived experiences that sometimes the best thing I can do is say, okay, all right. And I shouldn't have to make that other party feel comfortable, but to make sure that I'm safe, sometimes that's just the bullet I have to bite. Mm-hmm. But one of the things that just dawned on me recently, as I was preparing for another panel, I realized I do a lot of silent signaling. So when I'm out and about, I always have my beer mask or my hop mask. I wear big old hop earrings because for me, clearly, if you see I have all of this shit on, it didn't happen by accident. And sometimes it's successful, but a lot of times it's not. And you still get really dumb comments and questions, you know, shit like, oh, well, I see why they hired you. And I'm like, they hired me because I know my shit. Like, it ain't got nothing to do with these. Nothing to do with those at all, you know. But on the flip side of it, touching a little bit on what Angie had mentioned, you know, being in situations where people assume you're there by accident or you've been hired for the day. At our recent Pink Boots conference, and I sit on the executive board, and literally having people, I have my badge on, I have my Pink Boots t-shirt, you know, and people saying to me, are you here with the entertainment? Like, bitch, no, I'm not. It's just like, no. So just really dumb shit like that. And I think for my own sanity, I'm really good at making like a duck, but strategically. So I'll play dumb. and I'll let you discount and underestimate me, because what happens in situations like that, you're going to run like a faucet and you're going to say a whole bunch of shit that's going to be beneficial for me. And I just politely keep it in my pocket. But back to the original questions about, how welcome or unwelcome I feel at beer festivals. I think it's a little bit different now because I have my hands in so many organizations within the industry. So there's a certain level of, like, oh, okay, like I've heard that name before. But funny story, two of the most important men in my life right now are one, my beer husband, and my business partner in One Better Brews. My beer husband became my beer husband at my second beer festival ever, because he and I were the only two Black people in the vicinity. So the assumption was made that I was there, the begrudging wife of this Black man who wanted to drink beer. And I was just walking around. This is the second time I'd ever met this man in my life. And a vendor was like, "Oh, you're looking for your husband? He's right there." And I'm like, "I'm single. What the fuck are you talking about?" So we've been beer married for almost a decade. And then my business partner in Mo Better Brews, same beer festival where I met my beer husband, standing in line by myself. I'm a hardcore only child. I will go anywhere by myself. So very much like y'all, if I can take my computer and I have Wi-Fi, I'm gone. I just do my thing. But I'm standing in line. And it was like a slow motion vignette. Aaron, you'll appreciate this. So like I look up and I just see this sea of melanin with a Mexican man in the middle. And they all had on matching t-shirts. And I was like, who the fuck are these people? Like, wait a minute, I'm not the only one here. And I literally chased them for 2 minutes through the casino. And I was like, my name's Ashley. I just started drinking craft beer. Like, y'all like craft beer too? Cool. Can I hang out with you? And we've been together ever since. So I think there's definitely a lot to be said, as Bronski mentioned, like there's just that immediate, familiarity, whether it's obligatory, Negro to Negro head nod, like, hey, I see you, you see me, we good, some shit pop off, I got you. Like that carries a lot of weight. And me being a single female, like I rely on that a lot of times.
And that's kind of one of those things. And actually, I brought that up last year about going to Beer Fest and counting your allies. Mm-hmm. And I've always, obviously from the group that I was talking to last year, and shout out to the Bruise Brothers and Harry, Sasha, Wayne, and their group and their podcast. But I guess just kind of piggybacking on that, along with just kind of the welcoming thing, I want to get to Matt on this one. When you go to beer festivals, is that something that you do? Is count your allies?
Actually, yes. It's funny. When I first start, I've been doing the craft beer thing for a decent amount of time now. And I remember I was introduced, like I told you earlier, from my friend Joe McBain, who was from England. I got out of the Navy and I was a bouncer at a bar that was next door to his bar. My bar was a typical, college frat boy bar that people hang out and get drunk and do all types of things. And he had like this English craft beer bar. It's one of the first in our area. And after hours were closed, he would always come over and talk to me. Hey, try some of this over here. And I would try it. This is really good. And I got into it. And he took me to my first beer festival, craft beer festival in 1999. And I was with him. So when I first went there, I wasn't really looking around. I was just kind of with him and just kind of seeing what he was having me try and stuff. And it wasn't until like he stepped away and I was just having my own beer. And one of the patrons came up and said, "Do you work security here? Because there's a problem over." And that's when I was like, all right, yeah, now I get this shit. And I look around and there's no more. I'm the only one. I mean, literally in 1999, ain't no brothers and sisters at all in this shit. So it was just me. So that was like, that's kind of weird. And I went to more festivals over the years, and I still saw no other brother or sister. It's always just me. Mm-hmm. And finally, probably in the mid 2000s, like 2005 or so, I started seeing some African American population, in the beer festivals. And that's when it was like you saw one. It's almost like you got that warmth, and like that other person looked at me, had a smile, did that, and I was like, look right back. I'm like, yeah.
Yeah.
And we're here, brother. We're doing this. We're doing this.
You're not alone.
Yeah. So you almost want to embrace each other immediately. You're like, man, you're with me on this. I appreciate this. And I'm passionate about that. And I want to get to what Ashley and also the undeniable Vixen would mention before about the lack of female involvement, because back then in the late 90s and early 2000s, not only was there no brothers, there was no women. And I'm talking about white women, period. It was it was like the flannel wearing bearded white dudes. That was all a sea of them. And I was like, wow, there's ain't no females, ain't no me's, ain't no nothing here. So has there been progress? There's been some progress. So you now see female involvement. You now see African American involvement in all types of different races and backgrounds in there. But we still got a long way to go. And yes, every time I do, even females, I get happy to see them there too. I'm like, it's good to see that you're representing that you. And I hate when people mansplain to women. I hate that. I hate hey, you must like your sweet sour stuff. No. My best homegirl, man, she drinks IPAs all day long, and so you don't know anybody until you ask them about. So what do you do? What do you like? And they'll tell you what they like. You can't assume what people like. You can't assume what people do. So,
right.
That's what I'm so happy to see this room. I'm glad to see two women in the room. I'm glad to see people of color in this room, and I'm glad that we all have an appreciation of what craft beer is.
Indeed. And one of the good things about being here in Michigan is that, we have, I feel like we have it's not, it's obviously it's not perfect, but I feel like we have a growing representation of women in craft beer in the States. And a lot of people who have been winning awards. I mean, there was I think it was at one of the beer fests. I want to say I feel like it was the GABF, but I could be definitely wrong. But one of our big women in the industry, Miss Annette May, she just came back with a couple of awards of being one of the craft beer people of the year. So it was really awesome to kind of see that happen. But I want to go to Aubrey real quick, because obviously you're in Florida. You've got the app going on. What are the experiences out there with you and with the craft beer scene, and what has it been like with just kind of having those spaces and whether being welcome or unwelcome?
Yeah, it's I think the experiences that we're talking about here are universal. We're going to see this every fucking where we go, because we're different. But I think one of the key points is we're used to being different. This is the world that we live in. We have to. We're dealing with. We're a minority in every situation we go to, not just in the beer industry. So we're used to dealing with this. So, we understand that these situations are going to come up and we are conditioned to handle, similar situation, kind of like Ashley was talking about. I was at my local brewery here one day. They were having a nice little function. They were having a dedication for a local group here in Orlando was doing something for them, and they had a food truck there that was Black owned. So I'm in and I'm talking to the owners of the breweries. I got a beer in my hand, and a guy comes up and kind of joins in the conversation, and he looks at me and he's like, "Hey, are you with the food truck?" Motherfucker, what make you think with the food truck? But because I know these people, I don't want to cause a scene or anything like that, but it's that implicit bias that we're going to face pretty much at all times in places that we go, and we deal with that. But what I like to do is I like to flip the script sometimes. I used to live in Atlanta. And I'm going to date myself a little bit here and say some things, but when the corporation I was working for, when we would have people come in town, they would go to, let's go. And again, I'm the only Black person there. Hey, we're going out tonight and we're going to go to strip clubs and stuff like that. Okay. All right. That's fine. Let's do that. And we go to strip clubs. And of course, I'm still a minority there. And then one night I said, okay, I'm going to take y'all to another strip club. So I took them to the Magic City. I don't know if y'all know about the Magic City, but Magic City is a Black strip club in the hood. So, we get out of the car, we go in. The first thing happens is you got to get frisked before you go in. So, they are, a little skeptical, and they go in and they're the only white people in the place. But we have a good time and everything's fine. There's no issues, anything like that. But the next day at work, a guy comes up to me and he was like, Aubrey, I really had a good time last night, but I got to tell you, I was so nervous when I went in there, and being the only white people in there. I said, Mark, that's how we are all the time. And he was like, I get it. Now I get it. So it's just those types of experiences. Oh, shoot, there we go. Performing Arts Center, exactly. The African American Performing Arts Center. Yeah, we support the arts, as much as we can, or used to. My wife might be watching this, so we used to support the arts. So yeah, it's we're used to dealing with these types of situations. So I think that we handle these situations much better. I would really, really love to get Aaron and Bronski one day together, here in the Orlando area, and say, hey man, let's bring everybody we know to one brewery, Black people, brown people to one brewery, and see the reactions that we get if we had some non-melanated people walk in there and see the place full of melanin, and just kind of see what that reaction is. I think that would be great. But that's kind of motherfucker I am. I do shit like that.
And I mean, something like that would be, I think would be pretty damned awesome. I mean, I guess, one of the, big issues obviously that we have is that we don't have a lot of Black breweries. There's not a lot that are out there, whether it be, actual brick and mortar places or contract brewers that are out there. But yeah, that would be pretty damn sweet to just be able to have that happen. But I want to have Aaron jump in here. I guess you want to talk about your experiences, obviously with doing, doing the documentaries. I don't know if there was anything coming from there that maybe there was some experiences that you saw in filming those, or just your own personal experiences.
Well, I'm gonna take a page out of. Kind of sort of take a page out of Bronski's book. It's typically very difficult to make me feel uncomfortable. First of all, I'm a pretty big motherfucker. You're not gonna mess with me. My wife, not that big, but she'll kick your ass. Anyone who knows my wife knows she don't play. She shoots from the hip. So we would just go to breweries and everyone treated us nicely. And I'm talking about like the staff, the brewers. But yeah, and this is 2015, I want to say 2015, 2016. So not going as far back as Matt, because we haven't been drinking beer craft beer for that long. But I would say 2015 is when we started drinking it more avidly. And we would go to breweries, and we grew up in Aruba. So we were used to being among everybody that looked all sorts of different shades of any color. But what unified us is we were all islanders, same culture, same language. We all spoke multiple languages. So we just code switch like crazy, right? So we come here And it's only when we're living here that you start to feel like the separation. You know, it's like whites this, Latinos here, Asians here, blacks there. And it wasn't until we kept going to more and more breweries that we realized, well, shit, we're the only people of color in here, or among the only people of color. So we played the same game. We started looking for allies. As a matter of fact, as recently, we did this in Detroit recently, Rob, where we would sit down and we'd be like, okay, let's go. 1, 2, we start with 2. So there's 2 of us. 3, 4, 5. Okay, must be a good day, you know, because that didn't happen very often. And with the code switching that we would do, you know, people would either, let's say, not sit next to us at the bar, or we realize a lot of folks in this country, and it happens with colored people too, you know, when you're not speaking English, it's just a little like, we're just conditioned to kind of jump up a little bit and, you know, be like, warm up gradually to people that don't just speak English, you know? So those types of reactions got me to thinking, you know, I put my documentarian hat on, I got curious and I started digging. And because I figured there's so many people out there that are of color, and I know they drink good beer. There's no way we're the only people in here. Where the colored people at? So the numbers that were available data-wise at the time involved the consumer side. They hadn't really been collecting data as much about ethnicity or brewery ownership until, you know, more recently. So about 1/3 of people that drink beer identify as multicultural. And I'm like, you see, there's a discrepancy right there. 1/3 of the people drink craft beer that are consider themselves not white, yet I don't see them in here, right? And they sure as hell don't own or run the breweries. So that kind of curiosity over a 5-year period is what brought about this documentary, One Pint at a Time, where we felt it was time to give, you know, folks that have so much brewing history in their lineage, so to speak, right? Give them a time to shine and tell their stories, because no films out there had ever been done that do it exclusively. There was one film that came out a few years ago that talked a little bit about female brewers and a few black brewers, but just a little bit. And we decided to go all in. Why? Because time is now. So Here we are. Yeah. And through this project, I got to connect with you and everyone else on this call. And today I'm meeting Matt for the first time. But I feel it's kind of emotional, man. I feel like, you know, through this project, I'm making all these new friends, and I'm very, very blessed and grateful.
Yeah, and you know, there's one quote that I usually, because you were talking about, you know, the code switching, and one of my favorite books was Born to Crime from Trevor Noah, and one of the quotes that he said in there was that language, even more than color, defines who you are to people, and it just sometimes it's just exactly that. It's like when you're going in, that if you don't do that code switch, that people just they're already looking at you in a different way. Not everyone, but some are kind of looking at you in a way like as you say, do you know the difference between a Kolsch and a Pilsner? And once you make that code switch, sometimes it's just there where it's just like, oh, I think this person knows what they're talking about. It's just that there shouldn't be any problems here, or at least for, you know, from their perspective. But I guess, you know, one of the things that I kind of wanted to also go into, it kind of happened with the conversation going on here, in that, you know, getting more people of color into craft beer. What are some of the things that you do to bring more people? Because as Angie was saying, that if she goes to a brewery and that brewery turns out to be a piece of shit, I'm not coming back. and I'm telling my friends not to come there. But what are you doing to bring, more people of color to craft beer? Because obviously we've come from a very long history of going from prohibition to not any home brewing until being able to home brew until Jimmy Carter, and having nothing but the big brews and the big brew companies making malt liquor, which then got funneled into the urban areas and acted like they weren't the ones who were making it, but they were the ones that were making it. And that's what is associated to people of color, is drinking malt liquor. And it's
and it still is. It still is. That's one of the things that it's exactly like you were saying. When you talk about why Black people don't drink. Black people drink beer, but Black people drink beer that has been bought into the community, that's advertised to us. They don't advertise craft beer to us. They don't have it in the places where we buy beer in the hood. I was just recently at a place, and I actually took my camera out, and I was in the hood in my hometown in Tallahassee, Florida, and I was in a convenience store. And I took my camera out, and I was like, let me show you what the beer section looks like. And just kind of went through and showed everything that was in there. And there was plenty Schlitz malt liquor and Colt 45, high gravity stuff. And the craft beer section was like a 6-pack of Goose Island or something like that. And that's all that was there. But everything that was on sale and was for sale there was were the malt liquor brands. So what I did, I went to historically Black college, FAMU, and at FAMU's homecoming this year, I took a cooler to my regular tailgate, my Black friends that are there, and I filled that cooler with local craft beer from Tallahassee that was brewed right there in Tallahassee. And just started passing them out to people, hey, try this. And it was lighter stuff, it wasn't no heavy thing or anything that was going to take them away from what their palate is used to. But I did have a couple of sweeter sours and things like that in there, some Berliner Weisses in there that were fruit forward, that would, challenge that palate, just to get people to experience that. I'm like, damn, okay, this was brewed here. I'm like, my fucking brewery is a mile from here,
right?
So it's just opening those eyes and letting people know that there are other options out there that are available. That's all we got to do.
Yeah, Angie, you were jumping in.
When he was mentioning, what he found at the local corner store, I was like, it's probably the craft beer that was there is probably overpriced, on top of everything. But I think that when I feel that people are beer curious, and what I try to do is I ask them, well, what cocktail do you like to drink? I ask them I do some fact finding. I just don't throw an IPA in their hand. I do some fact finding with them and see what they like. And what I found, typical, I went to a birthday party. It was only me and the birthday girl that liked beer. But because the people around her loved her so much, we went to the brewery and table was full. So we're just going off, because I gave her a beer bouquet, because I always have beer. But they were like, but what is it? I mean, they were like, why are we here? And so I was giving them some questions. Like, okay, well, what do you like? Well, I like an old fashioned. I like this. I like things that are fruity. I said, hey, let's try a shandy. What's that? It was a lager with fruit, with a fruit base. And so the guy was like, okay, order everybody one. Everybody gets one. We're going to just try this. And they were amazed. They were amazed by, this is beer. This is what beer tastes like. And that is the experience that I have as well. One thing that I think that people should do, especially us that are truly into craft beer, is don't shit on the people that still drink Schlitz.
No.
Don't shit on the people that still drink Miller.
Yep.
Because you don't know, you have to meet people where they are. And if they're open to trying it, that is your leadway into getting them to experience craft beer as far as how you see it, because we didn't all start drinking craft beer at day one. No, I didn't.
No.
So I mean, I'm preaching the gospel, because I never would have thought I would have had a beer fridge in my house. Never.
Oh, and I definitely did not start with craft beer. Like my first beer, I was, your typical goody two shoes, and I waited till I was 21 and went to a party and had a Molson Ice, and it was the worst experience I ever had with beer. And I was like, what the hell is this? And I went to my older brother, like, this is supposed to be beer, and he said, fuck no, that's not beer. Let me give you a beer. And he gave me a Dragon Stout. And right at that point, it was just like, that's what beer is supposed to be. And I'm good. I'm flipping from here. But bringing that up to Dragon Stout, because Ashley brought that up, I would bring the question to you. Is this, what are some of the things that you do to bring people of color, into the craft beer scene?
Yeah. First of all, like, big up, like, we here now, like, I keep, was it the original Dragon Stout or the Spitfire? Because the Spitfire has a much better mouthfeel and a higher ABV.
It was like the original. I remember just like a kind of orange label with the black dragon and just the flames bursting out of its mouth.
Yeah. So very quickly, so in Jamaica, this beer that we're talking about, Dragon, like, when a boy becomes a man and you start getting these tips, it's like your big brother or your uncle pulls you aside and is like, oh, you going on a date? Like, have this Dragon. It's like, right? So I love that was like your first like beer experience.
I mean, I was all about it too, because, growing up as a kid, I'm a huge game show aficionado. So like, for some reason, like, if you ever saw Tic-Tac-Toe and the Dragon, it was like, I would just put two and two together and said, I'm gonna have this beer. That's cool.
Right. But and that's one of the things to your question, as Angie mentioned, like, you got to meet people where they're at, and being able to really understand flavors and be able to relate those flavors in a vernacular and terminology that somebody's going to connect to. Case in point, like, the average Black person has no idea what the fuck a wet horse blanket smells like, let alone tastes like. But that's the Cicerone question, right? Mm-hmm. But that sensory memory is really important too. And I think for a lot of people, like, I joke around and say I survived growing up in a Colt 45 household. Like, I can close my eyes and, be like, woo. And so when people have had that bad beer experience or that bitter beer experience, that's it. That barrier is there. I don't like beer because I had beer from my grandpa or my dad or whatever, and it was nasty. And when you're able to explain the process of brewing and the different properties that each ingredient brings into the flavor and the overall experience of the beer, you can somewhat combat that. But I think for sure being able to relay those flavor profiles, but also I think it's really important to expose people of color, people from underrepresented communities, to people that are already in the game. Case in point, I work a lot with the Urban Chamber here. We did a huge thing for Black is Beautiful, and a lot of people bought the beer just because it was a Black beer, and that was a gateway. So when you're able, like, the cliche is, you can't be what you don't see. And I think it's very important to have platforms like this where people of color can see those of us that have completely fallen in love with craft beer and been like, hey, this is what my journey is. Here, I did a collab. I mean, there's beers out there with 500 pounds of peach cobbler brewed in it. We were talking about doing a smoked collard green beer here for Juneteenth last year. And just being able to make that connectivity and relevance, because for me, beer really truly is anthropology in the glass. And I think when you're able to tell that story behind the beer, you're able to hook people, even if they don't like it, they'll try it. And because that's for me what distinguishes it from, you know, macro, for a lack of a better phrase. It's mass produced, it is what it is, it fills the need. Whereas craft, it's intentionally called craft because the thoughtfulness and intentionality behind why are we selecting these ingredients, what are the story that we want to tell. And if nothing else, we come from a tradition, whether African American, Caribbean American, we come from that tradition of storytelling. And somebody mentioned a while ago about, they're happy to see more women. One of the things that I love sharing with people is like, this was always women's work until the Industrial Revolution, revolution. And then we're like, shit, we can make money off of this. Go back to feeding the babies. We got this beer part. And it's like mind blowing how many people are like, wait a minute. Like, so the witch that we see in Hocus Pocus, all of that was nothing but a Brewster's uniform. The broom was to sweep up the grain. The cat kept the mice out of the grain. And the hat was put outside to let your neighbors know, like, hey, this batch is ready, let's go. So being able to tell that story, especially for women and women of color, we've always been a part of this. I mean, that's why Lifting Lucy is called Lifting Lucy. The oldest female human remains that were found in Ethiopia, that was a woman of color, and her name sure in the hell was not Lucy. But what I can tell you for sure is she either knew how to ferment a beverage, her mother, her daughters, that's always been a part of it was women of color. That's always been a part of our tradition. And I think when we're able to tap into that, you really kind of expand that interest.
Indeed. Millennia, not millennium, millennia. Women have been brewing beer. You get that right. Matt, you want to jump in?
Sure. No, and all very valid and all true points. And I think the Undeniable Vixen and Ashley, you hit the nail on the head. You can't give people crap for the crap beer that they're drinking. You can't do that. I also am now beginning to get into the whole documentary world. I'm working on one right now. I did one. I just recently did my master's, and I had to do something for it, and I made a couple quick films that got some recognition that I'm trying to get out there now. But that's one of the things I did is I had a taste test in my house. I brought some of my friends who were black who were drinking Steel Reserve, who were drinking Schlitz malt liquor, or they were drinking Budweiser or Coors or whatever the hell they were drinking. And you don't diss them for that because that's what they know is beer. That is what they grew up knowing is beer. That is in their neighborhood what was being sold. No one's selling all this craft beer, on the hood on Jefferson Avenue, whatever. It's all this stuff is what is available, and that's what they're drinking, and that's what they grew up drinking. So what I wanted to do was say, hey, sit down. I'm gonna give you a blind taste test, and that's what I did. I did a blind taste test. I had 5 different beers. Only one of them was the standard industrialized beer that you get at the store. All other 4 beers were all craft beers. And I said, I want you to tell me the worst beer that you've tasted, and I want you to tell me the best beer that you've tasted. In every single taste test that I did, the worst beer that they tasted was the industrialized Miller Lite beer that I had there. Everyone had a different choice of what their favorite craft beer was, and that's going to be the case because everyone has different a different palate, right? So that makes sense. But the one thing that was common is everyone hated the Miller Lite beer that was blind taste tested. So that's the problem, is people aren't exposed to this. People have no idea it exists. So it's not that people don't like it or don't want to try it. They have no fucking idea that it's here. So what we got to do is we got to bring it to the people because the people don't know. If these other beer festivals, which by the way, I've tied the New York State Brewers Association, I've tied one of my podcasts to that festival. We now broadcast live from that festival, every time they're in a different time we're with them, we do our podcast there. Do that on purpose so the people that listen to my podcast know that there's a beer festival that they can go and they can try all these beers that I talk about. But that's the thing, is you got to expose people to this stuff because it doesn't matter how much you guys know about this. I know about this. And we're going to talk about this. We're going to love it. You can tell me about one that I haven't tried before. But that's not helping out our community, right? Because they still don't know about it. They have no idea what's going on. We know about this, but they need to know about it. And how do we do that? We got to go in their backyard. And that's why I love the Fresh Fest. That's why I like Barrel and Flow, because those aren't regular beer festivals. Those are like block parties almost, right? With the music and all that stuff, the atmosphere. It's a party atmosphere that is, it's inviting to anybody. It's inviting to people that like to have a good time. And then while you're there having a good time, check out some of these craft beers. You know that shit that you've been drinking? It's not the best thing that you've been drinking. There's other things out there that's much better that you can try. Try all this stuff. All of a sudden, their mind's blown. They go home, they tell their friends. Now they come next year. And that's how we do it. We gotta bring it to the people that have no idea about this. Marketing is also a big thing. We'll probably get into that later. We gotta market better. Marketing, right. You know what I'm saying? We're not really, for some reason, when we market like in the African American community, like Ace of Spades and some different liquors. We advertised St. Ides. Remember that when that was a big thing when we were advertising St. Ides, right? We even Heineken. We advertise Heineken sometimes to the hood, but we don't advertise craft beer, and I don't know why we don't. It's a market that helps. That only one big thing about craft beer is a lot of the ingredients that are in craft beer are local, as you guys all know. A lot of the stuff that they make are community-based ingredients that come from local farmers. It's actually good for your community to buy craft beer, but we don't know that. We know that the commercial Jay-Z's drinking Ace of Spades. So when I go to the club, I gotta get bottle service of Ace of Spades because that's what I saw, on the commercial. That's what Jay-Z says. We gotta change that narrative. And that's how we get people to drink this beer. That's how we get people to get exposed to craft beer.
But I think the problem with, getting craft beer to advertise more to us is that craft beer doesn't do a lot of advertising at all.
That's true.
There's not a whole lot of, pretty much the only craft breweries that you see doing advertising are the ones that are no longer defined by the Brewers Association as being craft beer. Yeah. Because around here, we've got founder signs all over the freeway. But we don't have the Eastern Market Brewing. We don't have the Witches Hats. We don't have the I almost said Superstition, but that's the meadery. We don't have like the Bearded Lambs or like all the other small breweries because they don't have the money to do it. And it's not like the Brewers Association is really going to give them the money to do that because they're too busy pushing the independent craft label. But, to another point that Ashley had just posted in a chat was that the distributors have a hand in this as well, in that making sure that, I guess I could say not only the distributors, but the stores that are in the areas where they can reach more people of color, that the stores should also be able to do their thing as well, to step in and say, hey, we need to get away from, and not to say that there's anything wrong with PBR, because I will drink a PBR, but we need to step away from all the PBRs, the Miller Lights, the Miller High Lifes. Let me talk to my distributor about getting some bells in here. Let me do something to get craft beer into the area so that people can be around it and understand and maybe try it and understand it. But there also is that issue where craft beer does have a price point where someone is going to look at a 6-pack of Bell's Cherry Stout and say, I'm not paying $18 for this shit when I can pay $30 for a dirty 30 of some Natty Ice. Not that obviously it's not any better, but I'm looking at it as at a quantity standpoint where I can just like, all right, I'm getting more beer for the buck, and this I need more of this. But I want to bring it back to Aaron on this one in terms of just kind of bringing people. Obviously, you've got things for people to watch to bring more people of color into craft beer. But I guess other than doing, a fresh perspective, one pint at a time, Is there anything else that you've been seeing or that you've been doing to just kind of bring more people of color into craft beer?
One of the things that I wanted to bring up as I was listening to everyone is, yes, it's about going where the people are. Also, yes, about the distributors. But, there are a lot of breweries out there that don't care about distribution because they don't have to, and at a lot of our screenings, we've had, representatives from a lot of these breweries come, ask during the Q&A, hey, we think the film is great. We want to diversify our clientele, maybe our staff. What do we do? And that starts a conversation. It's like, what do they do? Because if they're not going to go to where the people are, right, then what do they need to do to attract people of color to come to the brewery? What are some of the answers that y'all believe can help these places? Because I feel like, the first step was feeling uncomfortable about what's going on, having like all this guilt, and then realizing, okay, there's an issue. How can we help move the needle? And then it's folks with like us that have all of this advice. So what are some of the answers that you would have given to them? Any of you, go first.
I want to jump in real quick. So there's a brewery called Rising Storm Brewery here in upstate New York. They were able to kind of borrow the Wu-Tang symbol, and all of their beer names are all hip hop names. Like they have 36 Chambers beer. They have Streets is Watching beer. They got if you guys get a chance, go to the Rising Storm website. Now, the owner of Rising Storm used to work for like a Paychex or something, and he's a white dude who really loved hip hop, who opened a brewery, who references a lot of hip hop. Almost all of his beers have hip hop names and stuff. It's popular among African Americans here in Rochester, New York, because it's referencing hip hop. And he did that on purpose because he's a white guy that saw there was a lack of African American involvement. So he made his beer reflect what the African American population is kind of gravitates to, which is hip hop music, right? So now you got these beers with all these hip hop names. So now even people who don't know anything about craft beer, they go into the store, they see the Wu-Tang symbol on it, and it's got a song, the name of a song. There's like I forgot the Piggy song that's on there, but
like 36 Chambers.
Yeah, like 36 Chambers, right? So and you're like, oh shit, there's a beer called 36 Chambers. I wonder what that tastes like. And then they buy it and they taste it. This is pretty good. I'm gonna keep buying this Rising Storms. And then they're like, well, I wonder what the other ones taste like. Simple things like that. Even though Rising Storm obviously is gonna have a higher price point than your Schlitz or whatever, but the fact African Americans do have money. I know Garrett Oliver mentioned that too one time. We just aren't spending it on craft beer because we don't know about craft beer. That's the problem. We will go to the club and get bottle service all night long and buy some other crazy shit at a club because that's what we do. We have no idea that craft beer exists, and we don't even try to explore that option. So I think that was great marketing. Is to have Rising Storm, have the Wu-Tang symbol, have all these hip hop names of these beers. And now people of color are buying these beers because they're just curious as to what it's all about.
I mean, if I
Matt,
I think Aubrey probably going to say the same thing I was about to say. I mean, Aaron already know. I mean, the Commission Beer Chain. What did he do? I mean, he's Wu-Tang Central, and I remember when he first opened, it was me and Hop Circle. We were the only people of color in there. Now, go in there now. What you see? All you see pretty much is people of color in there. And he just, I mean, he's from New York. He made it to where it's like his grandmother's basement. I mean, he has Umbrello's room. I mean, it's just, and it's playing hip hop all the time. And it's just bringing people in and it's working. I mean, for me, I don't give you any choice. you have to forgive me. I'm that individual who's not going to give you the opportunity when you're around me to drink any Schlitz. I grew up on Coke 45. I mean, but when you come around me, when you come to my home, when I invite you to my home, you go into my beer fridge if you drink beer. Plain and simple. And this is what you're going to find. And you look in there and you say, I don't know what that is, but let me guide you to that. Aubrey was talking about FAMU. One of my closest friends grew up in Alabama. He's a FAMU grad. He throws this huge party at during the classic when FAMU plays Bethune. Guess what? When I show up, guess what I'm showing up with? And the first thing he says, you need to try this. He introduced me to this. And I'm giving you this. I don't give you the choice but to drink craft. Because it's just in my experience, when you give an individual a choice, it's like if you saw that Malcolm X movie when he was talking about, look, you can have the clear water, but if I pour some ink in it, it changed it. You get thirsty enough, you're gonna drink that water with the ink in it. So I'm not gonna give you the opportunity to drink anything but craft if you're around me, because I'm going to force you. I'm going to introduce it to you, and I'm going to force this on you to where you realize, you know what? This is much better than what I've been drinking. But the problem, as we've all mentioned, is this. When you get to a place where, again, I grew up in Alabama, when you get to a place where Butler, Alabama, where you're only going to find Bud Light, Coke 45, Schlitz malt liquor, and you got these dudes that got to drive 30 minutes to get to Tuscaloosa, where the University of Alabama is, and buy the craft beer that's there. What are they going to choose? So I think we're in that conundrum to how do we get it to them, even if they know that they want it.
Yeah. And actually,
I agree with that. But one of the things that we still have to be careful of is there are a lot of breweries that are taking advantage of our culture. You know, we saw it in the Black is Beautiful campaigns. We saw people that were on the fence about doing everything and then jumped in the last minute when they saw that Black is Beautiful is starting to generate this, these numbers. And they were like, yeah, exactly. They just want the money, so where did that money go? What organization, what you were supposed to do with that is take that money and give it to something else that helped the initiative. And we all know that there were people that brewed that beer and did not disperse those funds. And we see it all the time with breweries that take hip hop culture and put certain images on their cans and things like that. It happens all the time. They take advantage of the culture. So we also have to just be aware of that.
Yeah, it is definitely a. I was coming up with a phrase for it and was thinking I was going to call it the Elvis philosophy.
Yeah,
because
that's a very good one. Yep.
But I guess what I was going to say earlier was that every time I hear Schlitz, that fucking bull just comes through the wall in my head, and I just can't stop with that damn bull. It's just driving me insane right now. Damn Schlitz. But Ashley, you've definitely been dropping some facts in the chat. You wanted to chime in on some of that.
I'm sorry, the way my brain is set up, like I gotta just put it out in the universe.
On fire, Ashley. I see you.
I'm sorry. I'm trying to behave. I'm sorry. Yeah, I would say for me, as I shared earlier, like I was one of 3 people of African descent on my college campus in the outer suburbs of Sydney. I've always found myself in situations where I was doing quote unquote white people shit, right? Like I have a punk tattoo here and people are like, oh, you love Bad Brains. I'm like, yes, it's an all black Rasta punk band. Like
One of the best fucking bands of all time.
See, but even with that, like when you distill things back to the roots of it, it all comes back to us. But it's very interesting how certain things get rebranded and packaged as white people shit, whether it's rock and roll or punk music or, box braids, aka cornrows. And for me, I find that my journey in craft beer has been another conversation to the uninitiated, like, oh, you always doing some white people shit. You always trying to be different. I'm like, no, this is mine. It's mine. But again, it comes down to that image as somebody mentioned earlier. Heavy set, white guy, flannel, beard, and that's just, it's very frustrating. And that's some of the resistance that I've encountered as I try to elevate some of my people's choices of craft beverage, alcoholic beverages, and really just bring them into this community is they have that perception because there is that lack of diversity, which I have issues with that word anyhow. They're like, well, I'm not going to be welcome there, or that's something that white people do. Why are you trying to get me in there? And it's really been a challenge to be like, here's the history of it. Here's the facts. This is ours. Very much like punk music and rock and roll. This is ours. And you're not going to shame me for indulging in something that belongs to me.
Right. Yeah. Black brains or bad brains, 24/7 spies and death. You can't go wrong with any of them.
Look, don't get me started on death. Like, whew. Okay, yeah, we friends for real. Like, and not a lot of people realize, like, the first punk bands were a set of 3 black biological brothers out of Detroit, Michigan, and then you had Bad Brains out of DC, and you have all these, well-known rock musicians like Dave Grohl, who, if it wasn't for Bad Brains, he would have never become a musician. But again, it goes back to that storytelling, and nobody's telling these stories.
I do love that Dave Grohl has acknowledged that, and that is just and Foo Fighters has always been like one of my favorite bands of all time, and just for him to talk about that and acknowledge that, which just like really kind of warmed my heart, because it just always felt like it's just like that what you say is that there's always this kind of feeling where things are just kind of taken, and with Dave, it was just kind of, hey, this is where it was, and this is where I got it from, and I need y'all to see that and recognize that there are these other groups that are out there that have been doing this thing, and oh, by the way, they're black. You need to recognize that they're out there, and they've been doing this for years.
Yeah, let's solidify our friendship. How do you feel about Fishbone?
Oh my God. I kind of grew up on Fishbone.
wait, Angie, stop. Like, you're distracted me. So, like, as much as I love craft beer, I love ska music that much more. I have a Rude Boy skanking tattooed here, a Rude Girl skanking tattoo here, and my license plate since I was 15 has been Baby Ska. And even with that, when people are like, I love ska music, Gwen Stefani's the best, I'm like, get the fuck out of my face. Like, No Doubt has not been a ska band since their lead singer was a black man. Get out of here. Like, yeah, Bob Marley, but did you know he was in a ska band first? Like, don't know.
Oh no, my first Fishbone album was Give a Monkey a Brain and He'll Swear He's the Center of the Universe. And then from there, I kind of went back to Reality of My Surroundings and moving up to Chim Chim's Badass Revenge.
Listen, Chim Chim's Badass Revenge has gotten me through so much shit in my life. Let me stop.
See, here we are. Beer podcast. We're talking about ska. Oh, all right. So kind of going back to the topics here. And Aubrey actually brought it up a little earlier, talking about Black is Beautiful. And, we're kind of 2 years later. I kind of feel like Aubrey, you're kind of thinking like this was just basically a cash grab in a way, because, you know, where has the initiative gone? Now, obviously, and Aaron, you kind of put some notes in here that I didn't know, that that it's supposed to be turning into its own 501c, which that would be kind of awesome if that happened. And then also we know from, you know, the Texas standpoint, because I've seen Marcus Baskerville, the man who started this initiative, had made some posts that, you know, Black is Beautiful has been showing up in the Walmarts out there. Now, from myself and from a Michigan perspective, there hasn't been much of anything. Like I've got this can right here, which comes from our batch brewing. I know that there's two different ones, which I actually had a can from the batch brewing in Texas, but this is the one that's here in Detroit. But I haven't seen a lot coming from Michigan. And other than, like I said, for what I cracked open earlier, the Ancestors' Wildest Dreams, which was a collaboration with Black Calder, which is one of the few Black breweries that we have here in the state. There's not really much of anything that I've been seeing in terms of beers with an initiative to help the causes that were being helped with that particular beer. So I'm curious from your neck of the woods. Actually, I'll start with you, Angie, because I mean, out in Texas.
I'm in Texas. Yeah.
What's going on? Like, is it still happening? What's going on out there?
So definitely in San Antonio, there is Black is Beautiful on shelves, as well as hardwood floors, which is the Pilsner. And actually in the stadium, the basketball stadium, you can get Weather Shoals there. I had Marcus probably like a month ago on being Black and Craft, you know, and just asking him, because a lot of people were kind of disheartened with Black is Beautiful and how everything went. And my standpoint of it all was, he's just one person. He can't be everywhere. And he did it with good intentions. And the thought process was supposed to be not necessarily giving your donation, whatever it was, to the NAACP. We all know what that is. But your Boys and Girls Club of whatever city that you're in, that's, you know, more niche places, especially if you're in a brewery that is the actual place is in the Black community, and you don't go outside of your community to even see those people, but you're using them. So what he said was he really wasn't thinking that it was going to carry on, as far as, you know, should I do another iteration of it, because he came out initially with like 3 different versions to just, you know, right at the top. Mm-hmm. Of course, sold out. And I think the deal with Walmart, it's still just in San Antonio, so I can't get it either. I can't get it because my phone, my watch. So I can't get it. I can't get it either. Being in Dallas, and it's a 5-hour drive. So. One other part of it was another Facebook group and it's still in existence, called, I think it's Diversity in Beer.
Yes.
Which is basically the watchdog group was, hey, we see you're on this list. What can you tell us where you donated and where you donated to? And calling people on the carpet. I can tell you, for one, like 17% drip, Sean, every single time, whatever glass he put out, when he was finished, he would send, hey, this is where I donated to. I went here. This is where the money went. I really appreciate Sean for doing that. He's like, look, I'm not playing no games. I want y'all to have this. I'm giving you good quality product. And I'm putting my money where my mouth is. I'm doing what I said that I was going to do. And unfortunately, there's going to be people that do that. And there's people that's going to not do that compared to like Sherman, where they did Black is Beautiful, but I did not know about it. I'm 30 minutes away from it. I can go there. There was someone in San Antonio that saw it on the shelf. They did not advertise it whatsoever. Now, we still have sundown towns. Now, Sherman.
Ooh, don't get me started on that.
I don't necessarily want to go down to Sherman when it's dark outside. Not me by myself. So I, of course, posted because that was one of the breweries that I really, really enjoyed. And it was like crickets. They didn't say anything, but they're selling it, but you can't get it at the brewery. I couldn't go to the brewery, but it got shipped off everywhere else.
Right.
And of course it was a whole bunch of, oh no, it's not like that. It's not like that. Come down, we'll do whatever. I was like, okay, or I can really appreciate the Martin houses of the world that every time people would send them notes saying, hey, when are you going to do Blessed Beautiful? And they was like, fuck you. We're not doing it. We're not going to do it. And I'd rather you do that than try to do a cash grab. I understand where you stand. You don't want to do it because your base will not be into it. Okay, we understand each other. That's fine, but don't do it just because.
Right. And I guess for everybody who's listening out there, if you do not know, and I will just say this right now, at my day job, we just had our diversity day, and I brought up sundown towns, and no one knew what a sundown town was. So if you do not know what a sundown town is, by all means, Google it, look it up, find the book called Sundown Town by James Lowen, and you find that out, and you understand what a sundown town is, because it is a very important thing to understand and know about in this country that still exists today. And just understand that. I'm not going to go any further because it is just a subject that I cannot understand that still exists to this day.
Take a road trip through Alabama, Mississippi, Louisiana. I guarantee you'll find out what sundown towns are after 6 p.m.
Yeah, there's a reason, and people want to talk about Green Book and how they love that movie. You find out and understand what the Green Book really the fuck was, and you understand that in sundown towns. But I'm gonna get off of my pulpit because the pastor's calling. I'm gonna pass it, and I'm gonna get it to Aaron here and hear his thoughts on this.
You talk about what's going on in the years since the movement, the initiative began, which I believe it's currently the largest initiative craft beer has ever seen. Right, yep. In terms of money raised, participating breweries. I don't know if Bronski or Aubrey did this, but I personally, as soon as Marcus launched it, I personally started contacting a lot of the places that I go to, and I said, "Yo, Bobby, yo, Michael, whatever, are you guys going to do this?" And it was a little disappointing to me that, some of the breweries that I used to really enjoy, the brewer was like, yeah, we're going to try and put it on our production schedule, da, 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 da. And it's just like Angie said, it's like this bullshit tippy toe. It's like, why? And then it blew up even more after a few months. So they knew even more about it then. And you're telling me you're not going to make room for something important like this? Maybe they're being authentic at that point. They didn't give a shit. So then they lost me as a client. And there's about a handful of breweries in the Orlando area where I'm like, fuck you. I'm not spending my money at your place anymore.
Yeah, there's a couple of places that you already named a couple of them that I really don't really deal with like that anymore. But because of the BS, I'm gonna put this on our schedule. But I've seen you find room to fit in for the Smash Festival. Okay, you weren't planning for that because if you look at it, if you think about it, Aaron, the last Smash Festival wasn't at the same time that they usually had. So
there was enough time to do this. Don't give me that bullshit.
Yeah, you actually had to make an effort for the Smash Festival. And forgive me for those of you who are not in the Florida area. The Smash Festival is a big thing here. It's the single malt and single hop festival, and it's usually a specific time, but because of COVID, it sort of switched a couple of months later. And they didn't even know this was going to happen, but they found time to make it for the Smash Festival. So, that excuse doesn't fly for me.
It doesn't fly for me either. And, all these people locally, in other areas of the country as well, they're high on collabs. We collab this, we collab that. Well, dude, go contract brew the beer at one of your buddies' breweries. See if they have room on their schedule. Bring them into the mix. Show how much you care by saying, well, if we don't really have room for it, let me go find room somewhere else so that we can at least do something about it. Not even that. Not even that. But the folks that did participate, we were able to put some of that in the film, and I was very happy that they did participate. And the folks that they donated, as Angie was saying, with her discussion with Marcus, was more to like the local organizations, because that's where the community is, instead of, NAACP, boom. No, more locally focused. So I was glad to see that some of the places that I frequent and continue to frequent today did hop on board and they found time to do it. But the other ones, man, it broke my heart because I knew it was going to blow up. I didn't think it was going to blow up this big, but I knew it was going to blow up, and they just silence, nothing.
Yeah, and I think that's kind of the point that I was making. You had a lot of people that initially did not jump on board until they saw that that there was a lot of money to be made. And then they started to come on board, but they were disingenuous about the reasons that they did it. They came on board specifically to get people to come in and buy the beer. And then when you asked, who, what organizations benefited from it, it was always Black Lives Matter General, or, NAACP. That's not the intent. That was not the intent
ACLU
of the program,
or something like
that.
Yeah.
Right. And I promise you, I know some breweries that did that did not give a dime to any organization, either national or local.
I wanted to say here in New York, it took off. It really did. When I got my glass here, I got it from Harris Brewing in Pennsylvania. And I know that they've been doing really well with the initiative. And I will shed my friends at Rising Storm. They've grown in popularity, but they were kind of smaller in size when this first came out, and they immediately jumped on board too. But the funny thing in New York, it seems like the more well established, the more the breweries here that have been here for a long time and who are already big didn't really jump on board. It was the smaller ones. It was the ones that were kind of like just getting into the game. They jumped on board immediately, and I respect that because they weren't successful yet. So they could like, what, let's just go what we know and become successful and avoid this whole thing. But they jumped on board. the one thing, there's a lot of crazy shit happening in New York, but one thing I will say is for craft beer, it's a really good place. And they do a lot of good things with craft beer in New York. But it always seems like the really big companies are the ones that kind of drop the ball. You know what I'm saying? I mean, there's the big ones like Brooklyn, who obviously with Garrett and those guys, they're all over it and they do a great job. But there's some other bigger ones that have a really big footprint in New York State in general.
Evil Twin.
Yeah. Yes, that's true. Very true. Yeah. I wasn't trying to say names, but if you
oh, I'm gonna call them out. Call them out. I mean, I would think for a brewery the size of Evil Twin,
right,
that they could have pulled that off.
Yeah, that's my point. There's breweries like that. Like, why? How are you not? Why are you? And you're big, and why are you not doing this? I don't understand. But
so Other Half was one of the first to join.
Yeah.
They were one of the first 10 to join, I believe.
And I wanted to address to Aubrey's point. You're right. It is kind of a slap in the face when someone's being disingenuous. Where all you see is that all that matters is your profit margin. So when you think that doing this may not profit you, you're like, nah, you know what? I'm gonna leave it alone. But all of a sudden you see everyone's doing it. Like, oh, you know what? Yeah, we're part of it too. We're gonna give it to Black Lives Matter. See, we love you guys. God damn it.
We love the black people.
That is a slap in the face. I totally agree with you on that.
Well, and I guess, and I'm gonna pass this question to Ashley on this part, just kind of follow up on it. I guess which is worse, the fact that I was just on the Black is Beautiful site, and it said that there were a little over 1,200 breweries that participated. We're in a country that has over 8,000 breweries. Is it worse to have a brewery not participate or have a brewery participate and not necessarily give the money to where it's supposed to go? You're on mute. Oh shit! I just saw you say "oh shit."
Sorry,
I read the "oh shit."
We read the "oh shit." We saw.
I would say the latter with an asterisk, and I say this from my personal experience with Black is Beautiful here in Las Vegas, and really being able to use that as a conversation starter to really increase the engagement of African and Latin American entrepreneurs, to bring them in to this industry, because not everybody needs to open a brewery, but every brewery has swag. Most breweries don't have kitchen. They need catering, all of that. So what I've said, and I'm not going to call anybody out, but thinking you can just write a check, like, truth be told, like, fuck your money. Like, we can get money, and depending on where you are, there's a conversation somebody shared, an entrepreneur, they're like, look, I'm from New Orleans. If I want money, I can go get it. It may not come from legal sources, but I can get it. We don't necessarily need your money. What we need, if you are down to do this work, and it is work, is your platform and your privilege. And everybody has that. I don't care who you are. Everyone has a platform and everyone has privilege. So I would rather you not participate. And I see where you lie, where your consumer base lies. And yeah, it would be great to have everybody participate. But at the end of the day, if your bread and butter is made from somebody that is going to stop patronizing you because you support this, do what you got to do. This is a completely optional thing, but participating, writing a check, having an Instagram post and being done with it, that doesn't work for me. And then for me, I found that's the part that was conveniently forgotten for a lot of people that participated in Black is Beautiful, is you are signing on to this initiative. And more important than the financial contribution is you actually contributing to this change. And it's not a one and done type of thing. And that's been my biggest frustration with certain breweries that I've seen participate. It's like, well, we did it last year. Okay, but you made a public proclamation that there's a problem. You agree that this problem needs to be addressed, and you're going to be an ally, which I really hate that word. You're going to be a partner in this evolution of this community. I hate even calling it an industry, but a community. But because nobody's holding your feet to the fire, nobody's showing up like the health inspector being like, it's been 90 days. What have you done to make this a more equitable and inclusive community? It kind of falls by the wayside.
Yeah. That is fair.
Yeah. And, now it's, and I think they were doing this the first year, but now you're seeing a little bit more of spirits being Black is Beautiful spirits being produced.
Yep, that's true.
So it's touching the other fermented beverage industries. So my thing for everyone here, right? And I know some of the answers already, but like, is beer it for you? Do you enjoy engaging in spirits or wine? Like, what's your second poison? We have African Americans obviously making waves in those industries as well. So we were just curious about your thoughts there.
Well, Lady T and I, we started in really together into wines. Wine is what got us into craft beer, to be honest. We went out to we had started, really getting into wines. We went out to Napa, Sonoma, and for a couple of years, and like that third yearly trip, we ended up staying at a place where they had this happy hour, and we started seeing all these people that we saw at the wineries, and they were showing up this happy hour. It was packed, but no one was drinking wine. They were drinking these beers. And so we were like, what are you drinking? They were like, okay, this is craft beer. And it was like, okay, well, let us try it. And, us being idiots, we didn't go at the low end. And the guy asked us, what you want to try? But growing up as a Speed Racer fan, I saw this thing that looked like a Speed Racer sign, and it was Great Republic IPA. I was like, give me that. And he gave it to us, and I literally took a sip and like spit it across the bar. And I was like, what the hell is this? And he was like, oh, it's an IPA. I said, I don't want anything to do with this anymore. And we actually came back to Florida, and the guy who introduced us into wine was also into craft beer without us knowing it. And he was like, oh, hell no. You guys started off too big. You went straight into IPAs. What were you thinking? And so he started sort of like getting us gradually. He started us off with a lager from Left Hand. And we grew from there. So, wines got, we still enjoy great wines. We have a beer fridge that stays packed, and we have I think it's 75 bottle wine cooler that stays packed. And so we enjoy both. Lady T enjoys her bourbon and whiskey and vodka and gin and whatever other liquor you can think of. But again,
Brock, you can tell us you got a wine cellar, man. You ain't got to go there. You can tell us you got a wine cellar. That's fine.
I got a wine.
Nothing wrong with that.
Oh, I got a wine cellar.
Okay.
Hey.
Ain't nobody hating on that. That's fine.
No,
I got a wine cellar and a hell of a lot of liquor. I'm trying to stay. I'm trying to go to heaven. So look, but again, wine got us in craft beer, and I think it's a great thing, to be honest. It's a great thing. I've met so many different people through wine and craft beer. Our eldest daughter lives in Dallas, so we're gonna show up at Angie's spot before. We're gonna be knocking on her door, and she's not even.
You better come on. I was at my watering cove just the other day.
And so again, I think it's a great thing. If it doesn't do anything else, to be honest, if it doesn't do anything else for me personally, I I'm glad that I am able to make the connections that I have made throughout meeting different people throughout the country. Because, again, if we hadn't gone to the Great American Beer Fest 8 years ago, we would have never met Dorset from 17% Drip. We met him there. And it was simply because I'm around here looking for, are there any other Black people around here? And we really stumbled on each other coming out of the restroom. And we just ended up walking around the place together. And so, again, it's just the simple connections that we made that I really, to be honest, thank God for.
If I can, just briefly, I wholeheartedly agree with what you just said, Bronsky. And I'm hesitant to call this an industry because it's really a community. And Aaron, I think you might have seen me ugly crying at Arbiter the first night at CBC. Maybe you did, maybe you did not, I don't know. But I literally was just overwhelmed because all of these people that I've talked to through Clubhouse, Facebook, whatever, we were all in the same room and it was nothing but love. And, it is that initial connection, like, oh, you drink beer, I drink beer too. But, I'm not going to say too much, but Angie and I just met for the first time in February. And I feel like I've known Angie my whole life. Angie was there, checked on me when my grandmother was going through her transition. Other women specifically of color in this industry, Eugenia, Black Beer Chick, like that's my sis. And we both have had some challenges lately where I'm like, listen, you having that symptom, I'm having that symptom too. Like, what did you talk to your doctor about? This is what I told my doctor. And it's just like the personification really truly of that obligatory, Black person head nod. That's what it is for me being a Black woman in this community. I know I could show up any damn where, somebody's going to point me in the right direction and I'm going to be safe. I'm going to be loved on. I'm going to be looked at and I'm going to leave with some amazing ass beer. So even though there are other beverages that I enjoy, I was not a big gin drinker, again, the same way as I wasn't a big beer drinker, because no disrespect, but Tanqueray was not doing it for me. And then I went on a gin trail in Adelaide and I was like, wait a minute, like, this is gin and I'm getting all these botanicals and flavors and things like that. So any beverage that has a connection to culture and tradition, I usually find myself to one way or the other. But then again, what has kept me in craft beer is the community here that I just haven't experienced in other alcoholic beverage industries.
Yeah, I'm going to piggyback off you there, Ashley. I agree. A friend of mine, Cyrena Stout, she's a African American female that has been doing this for. You know her maybe. She's fantastic, and she goes around and travels and tries things. Wine, I'm with you. Black Girl Magic wine. I don't know if you guys have tried that before. I like the wine. I like the direction of wine. Liquor's a little weird for me, and I'll explain real briefly why. It's not that I don't like the spirits, the world of spirits. I enjoy, a vodka or rum or whatever, bourbon. I'm getting into bourbons myself too. It's just that, I don't know. It's a weird industry because if you think about it, a lot of rappers, a lot of hip hop artists have already been tackling liquor. You know what I'm saying?
Yep.
A lot, there's the Cirocs and all this and that. And there's exactly. There's all types of, and it doesn't seem like that people who were involved in liquor in that aspect weren't doing it for. There's more of a community feel with the craft beer. It's like just like you guys were saying. It's more of it's a movement. It's a thing. You want to get more people involved. It's like a family atmosphere almost with this craft beer thing. With the liquor, it's almost like it's just sales. You know what I'm saying? Like the hip hop people, that's why it's a commercial. Look at me dancing in the video with this bottle of liquor. It's a different feel for me with the liquor. It doesn't feel like it's a family community. Let's get behind this thing. This is what we're about. This is our people representing this beverage. It's more like this is what the hip hop artists drink. This is why I want to drink it.
Well, let me drop this verse, and then this verse gonna get everybody to go out and buy this.
Yep. Yeah. Exactly. That's exactly right. And was it a cool move when Jay-Z stopped doing What was the fucking liquor? You know what I'm talking about, right? And he went to Ace of Spades, and because the other liquor was Cristal. He stopped drinking Cristal because Cristal said something negative about black people, so he stopped using Cristal and went to Ace of Spades. That's cool, but the fact that every single rapper has their own like vodka or their own something, it just doesn't feel the same way as craft beer. So to answer your question, Aaron, yes, like wine and stuff like that, and ciders and stuff like that. I think you can probably feel the same way about those things like craft beer, but the liquor's a little weird for me. It doesn't hit me the same.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like liquor just don't mess you up and you're gonna get in the fights, whereas beer's gonna warm you up and you're gonna start hugging people.
There you go. Well said. Well said.
It's gonna be completely different.
Oh,
people are afraid to come to my house because my mother has given me that Southern hospitality. So when you come in, we're having a shot.
oh,
Then go and pick whatever you want. We're going to have a cocktail. Do you drink beer? We're going to have a beer. Then we're going to have another shot. Do you smoke cigars? Let's go outside. Let's smoke a cigar. It's time for another shot. I want you to have a great time. We're going to have food. I'm going to make sure you eat because I don't want you to drink and, have an empty stomach. But that's the kind of thing that I enjoy, having the craft, liquor and the craft beer, and just kind of marry the two when I get, when I want to do things. But craft beer is something that it's hard for me to even put a word to it or put words to it, because it is that sense of family, that sense of community. When I don't see you, if I don't already have your number, I'm concerned. I'm genuinely concerned and wanting to make sure you're okay. And even going to the Barrel and Flow, I went not really, I knew people but I'm seeing these people in real life and seeing the camaraderie and knowing that, as Ashley said, safe, because it was a lot of women there, but it was mostly men. And it's like, it was sis. It was just like, I felt like I was a little sister. I was, I'm going to make sure that you're okay. Are you good? You all right? Do I need you, get your Uber, whatever it is. And I love having that because I'm an only child too. So I'm not used to having the big brother or even just like the brother in my realm. And to have that sense of family, that sense of coming home, it's like welcome home. It's like going to Wakanda. I'm home.
right.
But it's probably been used so much, but it's like the homecomings that people talk about from HBCUs. And I can't get that in the liquor realm, but I found that in craft beer. I found family in craft beer.
There you go. Aubrey?
Yeah, that's one of the reasons I'm representing up here with the shirt with the crafted community, and the AF is capital, because it's dope as fuck. This community, it really is. When you start to, that's how I met Brodsky. That's how I met Aaron. I recently met Matt, and meeting the people at the different beer events. It feels like family, and that's fucking dope. So that's the reason we've started using this crafted community vernacular. We got a Facebook group out there. Go out there and join our Facebook group. But one of the things that we're trying to do is, when we talk about, we heard about all of these breweries that are trying to reach the Black community, and you might hear some background noise here. My son plays basketball overseas and just got back in town. So he got some friends over and they doing their thing out there by the pool. So it might be a little noisy.
It's okay.
But what we're trying to do is trying to, those breweries that are trying to reach the marginalized communities. We're doing a sponsorship at Barrel and Flow so that we can go in and say, we have a platform that will allow people to reach that community. We want the community to come onto our Crackum platform to download our app. And we're going to go to the breweries and say, hey, if you want to reach us, this is where we are, so come onto this program, come onto this platform. We'll have your brewery on there. We'll mark that you are part of the crafted community. And that shows that you are supportive of the efforts, that you're supportive of Barrel and Flow, that you're supportive of the LGBTQ plus initiatives, of the women initiatives and things like that. And that's a way that we think that we can help bring people together in this community. And if you've been saying for years that you want to reach these consumers, now we have a platform for you to do that.
Yeah,
let's see what's going to happen.
Real quick, again, I'm going to be brief. Just jumping on.
Go ahead.
That's a great point, Aubrey, that you make. Is craft beer pushes all these things, right? The craft beer does push LGBTQ plus awareness and Black awareness and minority awareness. Liquor never really pushes that. You know what I mean? Liquor doesn't take it to that. You understand what I'm saying? Liquor is more of a, you see people at a party, you're dancing, and that's like, oh, you want to have fun like this? Drink this liquor, and then you see a commercial about it. But there's a Drink Like a Girl here with Kelly Guilfoyle. She's also part of Pink Boots. She pushes awareness with women, awareness in the LGBTQ plus community, awareness in the minority community. I don't see initiatives like that with liquor. So that's the difference, is that there's more than just craft beer behind craft beer. There is a people, and there is a movement, and there is a need, or we're motivated to do good. We're motivated to do positive things in the craft beer community. I don't know. I'm not trying to say they're not in liquor, but it doesn't have that feel. It doesn't feel like you don't see people like Jameson or whatever trying to see with the initiative of trying to push something positive, except for their product. And I think that's the difference, in my opinion.
Right. All right. Well, we surprisingly have gone like 2 hours. So I guess we're going to go ahead and wrap things up here. It's almost just like it was last time when it did this episode, that it was just like, damn it. It's just like as many of the questions and stuff that we had prepared that we certainly did not have enough time to go through it. So hopefully this will be something where we can have start doing these a little bit more often, and just not just doing them, once a year and breaking them out with a couple more episodes. But that is going to do it for this episode. A couple of things I'm obviously just going to break out, going through the list here with Angie. Check her out on Instagram at the Undeniable Vixen. She obviously has her Monday meeting on Clubhouse, Black Beer Collective, or go ahead and do it, Angie, because I know I'm screwing up.
Being Black and Craft.
Being Black and Craft. Yes, I've only been able to attend like once or twice, and I tried to attend this past Monday in between me hosting trivia, just to do a shout out that you were coming on the show. So
it's okay, we have replays, so even if you can't make it on Monday, you can always go back and listen to the replays, without
a doubt. To Matt, host of Grill This podcast and Inside the Margins as well. To Bronski, host of Beer is Fundamental, aka Oh Beer One Kenobi, with his co-host Lady T, which I was just checking out the episode, a couple episodes this past week, and phenomenal stuff. Really, really good stuff going on there. To Ashley, running through Lifting Lucy, your Mo Better Brews, awesome work that's going on there. Aubrey and the Crackum app. Obviously, if you're in the Central Florida or around that surrounding area, check out that Crackum app. Like I said, I'm in Michigan, so unfortunately it's not up here yet, but I know it's going to get here. It's going to get here at some point or another. And Aaron, of course, the big man, Aaron, the man behind One Pint at a Time, award-winning One Pint at a Time. Amazing documentary. That is going to do it for this episode 292 of the Better on Draft podcast. You can find us going through Better on Draft, which you'll find us on Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, TikTok, and the Twitter as Better on Draft. BetterOnDraft.tv. On Twitch, Snapchat, and Untapped, we are BOD Podcast, BOD Podcast. And no matter what you think of your beer, we think it's blacker on draft. That's how that goes.
There you
Y'all
go.
have a good night.